Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. I welcome you on behalf of Devcom-Pakistan and DTN. This is a pre-COP 29 webinar, specifically addressing the challenges around mountains and climate finance. First, we will have a keynote speech from Mountain Partnership Advocacy and Communication Officer, Sarah Manueli. Thank you very much for joining us. Then Everest K2CNR Scientific Advisor in Pakistan, Mr. Ashik Ahmed Khan will deliver his speech. And then we will have Dr. Ghulam Rasool, former EC Mode consultant and Government of Pakistan officer, and now working with IUCN as Director Climate Change, will be delivering his speech. And then we will have other speakers as well with us. And Tahir Imran Khan is also with us. He is involved in adventure sports and adventure tourism. Then we will try to have his experiences. Let's begin our first presentation. Sarah Manueli, please, you can share your screen and kick off the webinar with your keynote presentation on mountains and climate finance.
Hey, there you go. Thank you, Munir. Thank you to Devcom for inviting us today to this important presentation. I'm just going to start sharing. In. Okay. Do you see it at all?
No, not yet.
Let me try again.
Yes, we can see now.
Let me just change the mode.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning.
Yeah. So, yes, that's great. That's great.
Excellent. Okay, so today I want to talk to you a little bit about the Mountain Partnership, a little bit about the climate finance scape that is out there. I must give a disclaimer, I'm not an expert on climate finance, so the Mountain Partnership does not directly deal with climate finance, but of course a lot of our members do. And of course we support resource mobilization activities and projects for members and projects. So just for those who don't know us, a little bit about the Mountain Partnership. We were founded in 2002. So we've been going on for 22 years. And it's really the only United Nations alliance dedicated to protecting mountain people and mountain environments around the world. Today, to this date, we have 600 members, of which 68 governments, and the rest are NGOs and IGOs. And the Secretariat is hosted by FAO and supported by the governments of Italy, Switzerland, and Andorra. And as we would say, it's really a multi-stakeholder partnership. So we have different actors coming to the table with different voices and different hats, all advocating for sustainable mountain development. Just for your reference, some of the members in Asia Pacific, obviously Pakistan, the government is a member, and of course, obviously also Devcom-Pakistan and other NGOs members that you might recognize. Again, I thought this slide is quite useful to give a bit of a background to where we are today and the road that we have charted since 1992. Hard to believe that that was the first time where mountains were included in Chapter 13 of Agenda 21 at the Rio Earth Summit. And then since then, a series of milestones happened to raise the mountain flag. 2002 was the first International Year of Mountains, and we were also founded, as I mentioned. And then various conventions and regional initiatives that address mountain issues at a transboundary level have been also founded over the years. The most notable ones are the Alpine Convention, the Carpathian, and the Andean Initiative, and of course the African Regional Mountain Forum. Fast forward to 2022, again, there was an International Year of Sustainable Mountain Development, and the outcome of that was the 5-year of action for the development of mountain regions, which is really the framework for sustainable mountain development, which we are now today, and it lasts until 2027. The Mountain Partnership's work is structured through 4 pillars. One is advocacy, so really working with members at COPs at regional level to raise awareness of mountains in declarations, messaging, reports. Then we have capacity development, and I'll speak a little bit more about that. Communication is very important, and by communication we mean really knowledge sharing, technical publications, sharing and disseminating members' publications or knowledge, and also what we call joint action, so bringing members together to activate themselves either in projects or programs or initiatives. Capacity development is a pillar of our work. We have, surprisingly, there are very, very few courses devoted to sustainable mountain development. We have been organized since 2008, IPROMO, which is a summer school on sustainable mountain development. And for 2 weeks, mid-level practitioners from governments or institutions meet in Italy to discuss a theme which is changed every year. Then we have a course called GROW, which is really looking at the importance of biodiversity in agriculture and a changing climate. We also had a 2-week course on water. And I'm mentioning this because my colleague Fabio Grita is here, but also because it was also held in Pakistan. We have an Italian-funded project called Sustainable Management of Natural Resources in Mountain Areas, which is really looking at raising awareness of the challenges faced by mountain people due to their changing environmental socioeconomic conditions. And we had a training, in Pakistan in 2023 on mountain vulnerability assessments in FAO Pakistan. And as I said, with the collaboration of the Italian Agency for Cooperation. Some of the countries that we cover here are Pakistan, Kyrgyzstan, Albania, Montenegro, and the Kabul University. But if you want more information later, Fabio is here on hand. Okay, so the reason I have this slide is really because we cannot talk about climate financing without talking about policy and advocacy. Again, surprisingly, mountains have never really been included in the main negotiations at the various UNFCCCs, but also CBDs and UNCCD, until COP28 in Dubai, where for the first time there was the Global Stocktake report, which mentioned mountains 5 times. On the basis of that, and this obviously that didn't come from the blue, but it comes from years of advocacy from a lot of countries, especially mountain champions from the Hindu Kush, but also Africa, and Latin America, and Europe. From the Global Stocktake, it was mandated to have the first ever expert dialogue on mountains and climate change. It was held in Bonn at the SAPS 60 last summer. And it was really a chance to look at both at the issues and challenges, but also the knowledge gaps that we still have on mountains and climate change. Again, we have, as a result of the Global Stocktake, we have the Nairobi Work Programme 2024, which has a thematic focus area on mountains, but also cryosphere and high latitude areas. And these are all instruments to mainstream mountains in the UNFCCC process and the UNFCCC Secretariat that runs both the SAPSTA and the Nairobi Work Programme. COP29, which will be held, as you know, in Baku in Azerbaijan in a few weeks, we have the government of Kyrgyzstan that has requested an agenda item in plenary on mountains and climate change, and will also hold a mountain day in its own pavilion. And of course, the Mountain Partnership is organizing a side event on the 20th of November, together with the governments of Kyrgyzstan, Bhutan, and Andorra. But also there are many other activities and side events and pavilions in which Mountain Partnership members are present. So the reason I talked about about the climate change and where we are, it's because I believe there's an obvious policy climate financing nexus. So you need to have policies and political will first, and policies in order to be able to really attract financing or mobilize resources. And there are various opportunities and entry points. I'm going to mention a few here and then a few further on. Some issues that are coming out more and more is that policies, for example, should facilitate equal access to climate smart technologies and offer financial and technical support to mountain producers, for example, so they can adopt sustainable and resilient practices. There are also various frameworks, processes, years, which are very useful entry points for financing for mountains. I mentioned the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, and I'll dig a little bit deeper in that as an example. They have mountain flagship programs. The International Year of Glacier Preservation, which will start in 2025, and an International Year of Rangelands in 2026. They're all different angles on mountain issues, but they're all relevant for advocating for funding. And of course, the former parties to UNFCCC should use their formal channels to strengthen the integration of mountains and mountains, for example, mountain agricultural system. This is something which is very important for FAO, so that they're integrated in a new cycle of nationally determined contributions. Of course, you know all about NAPS, but just to highlight that that's another instrument in which countries can include mountains and make reference to the importance of protecting and building resilience. We made a quick scan, and we saw that as of October 2024, 50 countries who have submitted NAPS and several references mountains, and they provide objectives for adaptation and resilience, covering food security, livelihoods, ecosystem restoration, biodiversity, conservation, water, energy provision, data, innovation, and investments. Loss and damage is another big entry point and has been a bit of the buzzword for the past few years. And those key pillars, there are key pillars of loss and damage, adaptation and mitigation, and the UNFCCC Loss and Damage Fund could enhance climate funding in many mountain countries. Another point I wanted to also highlight is the scaling up climate finance for social protection, which is kind of part of the loss and damage discourse. So really to ensure that we advance in inclusive and resilient climate adaptation, mitigation and loss and damage in rural settings where the poorer, the vulnerable are at risk. The other entry point, obviously, is valuing mountain ecosystem services. This is what a lot of climate funds do. So again, we look specifically at mountain products, at food systems, and we believe that combining the management and restoration and conservation of mountain ecosystems with high value production is crucial. Ecosystem services to businesses seek obviously to produce profits from goods or services. And entry points may include ecosystem restoration, but also agroforestry, sustainable water and soil management, agricultural systems that benefit both food and water security and improve market access. These, you probably know them all, but just a quick roundup. We have the Green Climate Fund. We know that in 2022, at least 31 projects in mountainous areas in 26 countries were approved, with a total investment of 1.8 million. The GEF is another very complicated fund, a multilateral family of funds. Again, they tend to really integrate mountains in their priority areas. Takes a long time to get the funding, but they are one of the biggest fund there. Adaptation Fund, I just wanted to mention it because there's a relevance to Pakistan. I'm sure you've heard there was a recently approved 10 million project to reduce Pakistan's vulnerability to climate-driven impacts. And this was led by the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination, but also developed in close coordination with ECMOD and I think also UN Women. So this is an example of a large fund which comes out also through cooperation and collaboration between different entities. And this is an example of how these funds can get allocated. I mentioned the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, and they have what they call World Restoration Flagships, both led by FAO and UNEP. Sometimes it's more FAO, sometimes it's more UNEP, depending on the angle, topic, and area. And there've been quite a few multi-country mountain flagships. There's been a famous one which was transboundary, but also looking at different areas in different parts of the world, which the Mountain Partnership worked with UNEP on, and that was looking at Congo, Kyrgyzstan, Rwanda, Serbia, and Uganda, and was largely looking at mountain species and ecosystem restoration, and again, looking at how that translates, the protection of species translates into livelihood opportunities for mountain people. But there are lots of other mountain flagship programs. Recently one was approved in the Andes with Sionan in Andina, I think they're called. So that's another very interesting entry point. Now a little bit more of what we do. As I said, we don't, the Mountain Partnership is really focusing on serving its members. But over the years, we've developed a part of the Mountain Partnership, which is looking at projects largely focusing on small-scale mountain producers, high-value mountain chains, and how to equip them with marketing and better strategies to access markets. Since 2017, we've been supporting 55,000 small-scale mountain producers in 15 different countries. And we know that mountain producers are key to climate change adaptation and overall to preserve biodiversity, agrobiodiversity, but also natural resources management. But of course, they face major challenges which are related to isolation, low land value limits, obviously loan access, so we have that, a lot of natural disasters and price volatility. In terms of accessing finance, there's a limited understanding of financial products. I would say also a limited offer of financial products and high costs. We at the moment, we've worked with mountain producers on different projects, again, funded by the Italian Corporation, but now we are actually developing a program to blend finance with technical assistance to de-risk investments. And in that way, we develop operational capacity and support an enabling environment for local financial institutions and loan recipients. The belief is that with tailored financial education, credit, and services, mountain producers can enhance their livelihoods and contribute to household food security. So a lot of strategic planning and financial inclusion is obviously planned in these projects. Key activities that we at the moment are running are what we call Business Incubator and Accelerator. So we support entrepreneurship in food, textile, and agritourism value chains. Together with UNDP Jeff Small Grants Program, we have dispersed grants in 10 countries. We are also undergoing research with the University of Milan to try and monetize the positive environmental impacts of small-scale farming practiced by these what we call beer beneficiaries, really to argue the case and use that possibly as a funding tool. We work with eFarm Organic International, which is promotes organic agriculture through an agroecological approach, and also enables farmers to guarantee their products, not through expensive external certification mechanisms, but through a system that is called participatory guarantee systems. And that's what we're doing now. We're trying to launch this social business approach to facilitate market penetration and creating coalitions between different credit programs for small scale producers. We're working on this with Yunus Environment Hub and Just Institute. This is my last slide. I would say that the obvious statement is that we need to invest in sustainable mountain development to scale up climate action in mountains. Addressing the drivers of vulnerability is key. And I've mentioned a few. Gender inequality is a very big one. But we also need to have financial resources that are adequate to the scale of necessary action. This sometimes requires this significant gap in sustainable financing. Often initiatives rely on short-term funding cycles, and we've seen that this is very difficult to maintain. It's not sustainable. So innovative financing mechanisms are needed. So not just the big, large funds, but also public-private partnerships. The Mountain Partnership works a lot with that. Revolving funds, targeted loans for small-scale producers. And of course, removing barriers to market access for mountain products can enhance economic opportunities and incentivize sustainable practices. Thank you very much for that, and I'm happy to take any questions as needed.
Thank you, Sarah, for your wonderful presentation and the wonderful work that Mountain Partnership is doing. My question is that what would be your take to COP29 and how you would be promoting or trying to pitch climate finance for the mountains, and as in most of the countries, the mountain people and the mountain projects have less funding, and most of them, mostly, they are undermined. What is your take to COP29?
Thank you. As I said, we work a lot at COP, and the approach at this COP will be again to continue and to insist in having mountains included in the plenary discussion. This is the first step. A little bit while I was talking about the policy and financing nexus, we cannot argue for financing for mountains if we are not mainstreamed in the main plenary decisions. So this is the starting point, and it seems like a little starting point, but it's been taking many, many years. I think loss and damage is a good entry point. But as I said, also innovative funding. There's a lot of talk of innovation, of looking at different ways of funding, and partnerships and cooperation and partnerships between different types of stakeholders.
Okay. Anyone else if I have a question, please raise hand before I go to the next speaker. Dr. Ghulam Rasool Saab is with us. He's Director IUCN, Director Climate Change with IUCN, and he has to go for another meeting online. And he has asked me to take him first. Dr. Ghulam Rasool has been heading a Met Office of Pakistan and has also been working with EC Mode. Dr. Ghulam Rasool Saab, can you please unmute yourself? Yeah, thank you, Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab, while we are talking about COP29, what do you think how Pakistan and other countries will be or shall be moving towards the seeking climate finance for the most vulnerable areas and the forefronts of climate impact? Dr. Saab.
Thank you very much for providing me this opportunity to talk to you and many colleagues who are joining remotely. I'm not now part of EC Mode. I am advisor of China-Pakistan Joint Research Center on Earth Sciences. So, but I have served at that platform. I can understand the importance of glaciers and the mountain people who are suffering most due to the climate change. I had one question for Sarah, but maybe later on. Mountains of Pakistan, especially, there are two types: high mountains, which are part of Asian high mountains. Those are glaciated, and there are some low elevation mountains also. Those are producing torrential rains. So there are two types of problems related to climate change related to mountains of Pakistan. In glaciated areas, especially the HKH mountains, they are highly vulnerable to approaching monsoons. When monsoon is strong, that is reaching the glaciated areas, crossing high mountain barriers, and that accelerates the melting process. Unprecedented, even the models cannot assess that volume which are generated. 2022 is in front of us. That was the worst example of melting of glaciers due to impact of monsoons. There were 39 Gulf events registered and 163 flash floods generated in HKH area. And this was this is the record which could never be expected. Usually, one or two Gulf events occur in Gilgit-Baltistan area, including Chitral, in a year. But this was really eye-opening. And other part of these mountains, which is extension of Hindu Kush mountain range, Salman range and Kirthar range. When monsoon strikes from the east, there is orographic development of clouds, and those clouds are built up very strongly in a large area of Salman range and Kirthar range, and they produce cloud bursts, very heavy downpour on the peaks of these mountains, and that volume generated by these rains runs down the mountains, and that destroys infrastructure, housing, agriculture fields along the Indus River. So these are the vulnerabilities. I think we are very much aware about these vulnerabilities. Sarah has mentioned a collaboration of MOCC and EC mode. I have worked at EC mode, and I have some experience of working in the region. Unfortunately, most of the funds which are allocated to any project which is given to EC mode, most of the funds go into the salaries, and also their travels, and a minimal amount is left to work to conduct the scientific investigations in the region. So therefore, I think results are not very much visible that are expected by the regional member countries. This is a specialized institution present in HKH, and I think if some funding consumption can be settled down, then most of the countries can benefit from that expertise, and there should be a focus on capacity building of human resource
Okay.
locally. Otherwise, the objectives of EC mode and objectives of these collaborations will not be harnessed successfully. And while talking about COP29, yes, it is now knocking the doors. We should prepare for a partnership, not individual cases. If we will be part of partnerships, let's move with the mountain communities. There are 10, 12 countries which are sharing the resources of high Asian mountains. So they can join together, and there should be a common voice on common issues. Most of the issues are common, and those issues are not directly touching the mountains. Even upstream, downstream connections, those should also be addressed. Like Pakistan. Pakistan is not only concerned with the accelerated melting of glaciers, but we are concerned with the dwindling environmental flows to Indus Delta. Indus Delta is also suffering from that water which comes from the north. So upstream, downstream connections should also be taken care of, and this is the common problem of all the countries who are sharing the mountain resources of High Asia Mountain. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ghulam Rasool Saab. You spared your time, and you had to go to a meeting. And if anyone has a question to Dr. Ghulam Rasool Saab, please raise hand, or we shall move to the next speaker. Thank you, Dr. Ghulam Rasool Saab. You can stay with us meanwhile. And if you have any question, as you mentioned earlier, that you would like to ask to Sarah manually, you can ask that question before you leave.
Thank you. Sarah, my question is about EC mode and MOCC partnership and collaboration. So how can that issue be resolved? Because this is my observation, being the part of that system. Most of the funds are going to the salaries and travel.
That is
I'm
a common
afraid I cannot speak on behalf
basically.
of ECMOD. Sorry, I'm afraid I can't speak on behalf of ECMOD. I'm from the Mountain Partnership. I don't work in ECMOD. I just mentioned this because I thought it was an interesting example for the adaptation fund.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Mr. Ashik Ahmed Khan is the scientific advisor working with EVK2CNR in Pakistan, and he has been running Pakistan Forest Institute and working on biospheres and so many initiatives. He has also been engaged with the Pakistan Mountain Festival for years now, and he was responsible for managing Pakistan Mountains Pride Awards, and he is one of the advisors to Pakistan Mountain Festivals and other initiatives that Devcom-Pakistan launched. Ashik Ahmed Khan Saab, Pre-COP again is just around the corner, and many people are talking about again the rhetoric things. among the rhetoric, we started off raising voice for mountains, as usually we do. What do you think, Ashik Saab? I can't see you.
I don't know why you can't.
नहीं नहीं
I'm
तो
there
तो
and there.
तो थोड़ा सा जरा आगे को आ जाए. Can you come closer to the camera so that our friends can see you? Yeah, it's better.
Okay.
It's better for him now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have been also working with EBK2 CNR and so many initiatives. And as Sarah manually mentioned that it's only last year, COP28, when mountains were included into the main agenda. So we shall be proceeding ahead or taking the agenda forward this year. What should be done and how the countries having the mountains can contribute to furthering the mountain climate finance.
Thank you very much, Munir Wahid. I don't know if COP29 will really be addressing all those issues that were neglected so far. But Ghulam Rasul Saab has pinpointed some of the issues, and I totally agree with him that funding in that sense, although Pakistan is one of the 7 to 10 countries who suffer the most from the climate change, but we do not get proportionate funding with that respect. So the only thing is that even if money does come to Pakistan, it doesn't go to the people who suffer from all this problem. And let me tell you a bit about the problem which really the people are suffering. I have been conducting some kind of surveys in the northernmost part of this country, and I have been present in almost all the ecosystems of this country, starting from the coastal area. And if I say it, it may not be wrong that all the ecosystems from 26 to 46 in number, they all dependent on the mountains in the north. And if we have problems in the mountains in the north, it means that we have problems in almost all ecosystems in the country. They must be there then in the coastal area, they'll be in the desert ecosystem, they may be all in the wetlands and the rivers and everywhere. Let me tell you that EBK2CNR has done a landmark kind of research on the glacier mapping in this country, and now we know that there are 14,000 glaciers in this country. Previously, we think there are 5,000 to 7,000, but now we have determined that there are 14,000. It means that we have the biggest reservoirs of these in Pakistan. So, but what we do we address the issues that are related with these glaciers in the north? So the answer is really no. And let me tell you of the results of a survey that I conducted almost 12 years back. And 12 years back, this survey, it covered many high altitudinal area, including the valley of Shamshal and the valley of Misgar and all those places. And the best example I could see in those areas was in a 30 square kilometer pasture that was drying up because of the glaciers being going back or melting away. So the water that used to irrigate this rangeland is no longer available to the pasture. And the result is that now they can host or support only 40% of the original number of the livestock which they used to. And that is the direct impact on the people. And when I was talking to the people, this was really surprising for me as well, that they have so much knowledge about this thing or this issue that I couldn't find them in the scientific books. But what we do, we just concentrate on the scientific books, but we do not dig out the indigenous knowledge that is contained in these communities and in these areas. And let me tell you about this knowledge, that the people were telling me that if they were given some funding, this will not require a huge amount of funding, that's coming to different organizations, even in Pakistan. And according to Ghulam Rasul Sahab, 70 or 60%, I don't know how much, but that goes to the salaries and not to the actual field work. But if some money is available to these people, they can again dig out the channels right from the receded glaciers down to the pastures. And they're sure that they can rehabilitate the pasture again. But no one is there to fund them. No one is there to support them. No one is there to know their problem. So the people suffer there, and we will be sitting in big meetings to discuss the issues, which perhaps may not go to that deep rooted, which are deep rooted in the community or in the system. I have, when I say that the ecosystems are dependent mostly on the ecosystem in the north. And this is the mountain ecosystem, this is the glacier ecosystem. And from the glacier, we get a very good amount of water to irrigate our pastures. So the pasture ecosystem is dependent on the glacier. And then from there, we come down to the plains and then go to the coastal areas. Combining all this, the only thing is that the people who are living there, they have certain amount of knowledge about this area. This may not be 100%, but if their knowledge is really combined with the scientific investigation, perhaps we may come up with a good strategy how to cope with the problems of the people in these areas. And adaptation is one of the things. That's the only solution, because mitigation, again, which since it is done on the state level, it may take a long time. But adaptation is down on the community level. And if you support the people to do the things which they think is the right thing, perhaps we can approach this problem very easily and again with more convenience. Let me tell you about some of the mountains in the Suleiman Mountains, which support a very big forest of Chalghoza forest. Over the last few years, I have seen that Chalghoza forest is going up, and most of the things are the places are left behind that are not supporting the regeneration of the Chalghoza forest. And that is a direct impact of climate change on the mountain. Then Chalghoza forest again is the livelihood source of the community. If that is gone, it means that 10,000 people immediately they will go out of the thing they used to earn and support their families. So my view will be that we may direct a part of the funding direct to the community. And we, even if we give it to some organization, we have to work through organizations and through governments. But if there is a binding somehow that certain proportion of that money has to go direct to the community, and they will be responsible to invest that money the way they like and the way they think is right, perhaps the problems could be minimized. So at this stage, I will just finish, and thank you so much. But I'll be there to take any question if there is. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ashik Saab. We have been raising a voice for the communities and their participation in the development process. But unfortunately, we don't see communities, the mountain communities are united, or like they have one voice for them. They are segregated like their valleys. What do you suggest to go about uniting the different communities together to make a big voice?
Munir bhai, you must be aware of that even if we have a tiny project, a very small project, we run after the people, and within months we get them united, right? And for a bigger cause, we are not doing it. So the best thing would be that this is also the responsibility of the organizations who are investing that money which they get from different sources to unite these people on common agenda. And if you dig out this indigenous knowledge in various, I may say, ecosystems, then you will clearly see that there are some of the commonalities in most of these things. And if people could be united on the common things. This it's not difficult. I don't think it's difficult. I have combined the people of the most of the Punjab village organization into a very strong kind of organization, and who are now doing wonderful things and wonderful job. So that could be replicated in most of the mountain areas, not only in Pakistan, but in other countries as well.
Thank you, Ashok Saab. Now I would move to Fabio. Do you have any comments like how the participants to the COP29 shall be moving forward the climate and mountain agenda?
Well, I'm not very much involved in this conference, but I agree with what has been said, that more voice should be given to the communities, and I think representation of the communities should be present to the conference. I think although it's a very political, let's say, type of event, I believe that it's very important to understand how the people in the ground think. And for example, recently we had a meeting, actually a workshop in Islamabad on for our project, and a lot of issues like the one that has been raised today have also been presented. And I really fully agree that the local knowledge is very, very valuable and should be taken into account in future plans. So this is something I believe that is a message that should be, let's say, conveyed to the conferences.
Okay, thank you, Fabio. Now, I can't see Susmita. Where is Susmita? Yeah, I think she has left. Carl Brusso, would you like to speak about Carl Brusso?
Hello and greetings from Africa.
Hello, Carl. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you.
So,
I'm late on this because I had a meeting earlier this morning. I see a banner behind you saying mountains and climate finance. So I'm presuming that's what we are talking about. Is that correct?
yeah.
All right. So maybe I just add to give you some background. I head up a conservation trust fund at Mount Mulanje, which is the highest mountain between Kilimanjaro and the Drakensberg, Maluti Mountains in South Africa. We are somewhat isolated, but we do work together with other mountains in this area. In what we call the Eastern Afro-Montane Archipelago. It's quite a long term. But I just want to come straight to the point here about climate finance. Mount Mulanje in the past 2 years has borne the brunt of 4 tropical cyclones, one of which was Freddie, which was as they say, the longest and strongest cyclone in known history. And it tore apart the mountain despite it being fairly well forested. And unfortunately, since then and 3 other cyclones, we really have now degraded our surrounding biosphere reserve. The irrigation systems, of which there were more than 50, have all been broken. The pipe water schemes have all been broken, and even some hydropower facilities have gone. Now, Malawi, where I am, the country is I think on the HDI right down at about 170 something. So you can appreciate we just don't have the resilience to repair all these facilities. But we have not seen any forthcoming response or assistance to assist us in any way. So I just make that known that climate finance is important. Yes, we are working with the Nature Conservancy and others to develop a water fund on the mountain, but that will take time to implement. Right now, it's reparation damage so that we can get food security sorted out, and the mountain's resources do not become a consistent coping mechanism that they now are in. We have plus of minus 500 endemic species here, so, and a very small mountain in some respects compared to some in the area where you are. But these species are all under threat now. So thank you for giving me a few minutes to talk, and I just make my small contribution.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. Do you have any mechanism to, raise a collective voice in the COP29, or like any UNFCCC COPs?
We don't, and bar the sort of mountain partnership kind of collective voice, which is great. We don't have a more regional voice.
Okay.
Our mountains are somewhat spread out between Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Malawi, and our distance between them is quite far apart. So we do miss a more regional body or collection that could voice itself.
Okay, thank you, Carl. We have two hands raised now, two participants, and I would request them to ask questions, and we will have their comments if they have any afterwards. Sadaf Khalid is a sustainable tourism expert working with WTTC. Sadaf, what do you have to say?
Thank you, Mr. Munir, for conducting a very important discussion just before COP. My observation and comments on the specific topic would be basically, I would say that I'm the voice of the community in the northern parts. I've experienced personally the floods in 2010 in Kalam Swat. I've also experienced floods in 2022, and also just recently on 30th July 2024, there was a flash flooding in that area. I've been advocating and raising the voice of that community on international level, attending two COPs, COP26 in Glasgow and the recent COP in Dubai. My question to all the expertise over here, I can see Director EPA from Gilgit Baltistan is also joined. And I just briefly saw the presentation of the colleague who was joining, who was talking about the mountain preservation and the projects the Italian government has funded in Pakistan. As Dr. Ashik was rightly pointed out, in a country like Pakistan, what are we waiting at the government level? I would rather focus for another natural disaster to happen.
Okay.
We've had numerous conferences and events in Islamabad, in Pakistan. Where is all the funding going? Where nobody is highlighting where the issue lies in that area.
Question, please.
The communities are facing, how can we help those communities? Deforestation issues are lying. We are not providing alternate source of energy. How can these international platforms, my question to all of you is, how can we help those communities?
Okay.
So these problems, we keep on repeating the same problems, but nothing is done on the ground where the problem lies.
Okay. Thank you, Sadaf. Anyone like to answer, please raise hand. Meanwhile, I would say that the deforestation is mainly on the part of the mafias, and that have a nexus. The mafias have nexus with mostly with the political forces. Those come into the parliament and even the environment protection agencies and other agencies could not do anything about it. And we have seen disastrous deforestation in Gilgit-Baltistan as well, and in other parts. I think my response to this is like until and unless uh, the communities make nexus, or communities come uh, to join hands to raise voice, this menace will not end. Anyone else like to answer? Yeah. Seema Tahir Khan Sahiba is, please unmute yourself, Seema Tahir Khan Sahiba. Please unmute yourself. Yeah, yeah. Seema Tahir Khan Sahiba is one of environmentalists from Karachi, and she also heads a media group that owns a couple of TV channels. Seema Sahiba, what do you say about the topic? And also, if you like to respond to the question Sadaf Khan asked.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'll say a few words. I did not want to respond to the question because it is obvious that things are not only in the hands of the government. There's no integrated approach to the issues of mountains. And we need to do something right away. My observation for the last few years, I've been studying the northern areas, and I feel that we do not have a dynamic data collection and data analysis system. So we're looking at systems all over the world. We do not understand. We know that there are 14,000 glaciers. We know that NDMA has been working on understanding the glaciers and the rate of meltdown of the glaciers, the flash floods that are caused because of glaciers. But do we have a comprehensive multi-system uh, resource to see the rate of precipitation, to understand the rate of evaporation of the glaciers? Do we understand how much water is coming into the system and how to direct the water to the people who are living in the pastures, who are agriculturists, who are growing fruits and forests? So is to the communities that are affected, to households, lively households. There was a time when in Gilgit-Baltistan, you would see orchards from one end to the other end. All the fruit that was nurtured in those orchards was available to all of Pakistan. Today, I know of people living in those areas who are selling off land very cheap and asking developers to come in because they do not have the water resource, they do not have an understanding of climate change. So my point is that do we have a credible current data collection at our end? Does the Department of Statistics in Islamabad, the Bureau of Statistics, does it collect contemporary credible data, or is it biased data? The fear is that it is dated and it is biased. So we need more than an anamorphic system. We need to look underground. We need to know there are male and female glaciers. We need to know how it works, how do they melt, and how can we understand them and stop the flooding before those flash floods come.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Seema Tahir Khan Sahiba. And before I move ahead, I would ask Moin Bhatia Saab to unmute himself and share his thoughts or question or comment. Ji Moin Bhatia Saab.
Ji, thank you, Munir bhai. Very interesting conversation. So my question is that since we have a lot of international experts here in the discussion, how can mountain communities and organizations working on mountain related climate change related challenges basically push this issue higher on the agenda of government? In your experiences of working with different governments, how have mountain communities done this? And also, besides pushing up the agenda, enabled collaboration between different parts of government to focus on this very urgent challenge. So that's my question to any international experts who would like to share their experience in the countries
Okay.
they worked with.
Thank you, Win That's a very crisp and precise and direct question. Sarah, being the Mountain Partnership representative and representing all the mountain communities worldwide, what do you say about the question that Win Bartley has just asked?
That's our main mission. So it's a very large question which we've been grappling with and addressing for the past 22 years at various levels. So I can tell you what works, and I can tell you where we are today. And something I didn't mention before, which I think is one of the steps for the political will, which is fundamental, is, for example, that the government of Kyrgyzstan has really been leading the mountain agenda and has been a great champion in the past few years, and even led the recent International Year of Mountains and the 5 years. Is also creating a group, a negotiating group at the UNFCCC of mountain partnership countries. And that is a critical mass. So that will help, hopefully, the more, and obviously the whole issue between highland and lowlands is not just about mountain countries, it's about all those countries that benefit from the ecosystem services and goods of mountains. So that's one concrete act that's going ahead. As I said, they've asked for an agenda item, and they're also going to be launching a declaration. The other side is national policies, which I mentioned before. They need to be integrated. We know the mountains are cross-sectoral. Many countries and governments not only have mountains, but maybe have coastlines, and so they have different priority agendas that they have to kind of negotiate. Some countries are wholly mountainous, some countries are landlocked, so some countries are more focused, and that's why we call some countries mountain champions, because it is their priority. But national policies, national laws. One thing I always think as a good example is Uganda. It has some of the best mountain-related national laws on natural resources and ecosystem conservation, because they realize that, for example, Mount Elgon, which is one of the main mountains, provides livelihoods to so many communities there. So that's important. And of course, what we've discussed before is the people's knowledge, traditional knowledge, adaptation practices. That is something that we share a lot. Again, I didn't mention before, but we will be publishing a publication on the 11th of December, which is International Mountain Day, with 26 case studies from all around the world of adaptation practices to climate change. And that's what mountain people do. They've always done that, even before climate change was so extreme, because, as you all well know, mountain people are having to adapt to very harsh environments. So they've done that through centuries. Now, obviously, the rate of adaptation has to increase, because obviously the rate of climate change is almost too fast to be able to adapt. But those are really interesting examples of community-led practices, indigenous people's knowledge, combining traditional knowledge with innovation, with technology. So it's really the three levels, right? The global level, the national level, and the local level. And the three need to be connected.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Now I request Director Environmental Protection Agency, Gilgit-Baltistan, to respond to the questions and the comments that have rendered by the previous speakers. And Gilgit-Baltistan is also facing a lot of problems at the moment, and before it was, we used to call it heaven on earth. but now it's becoming like what word I shall use. Please, I just missed your name please introduce yourself and please speak. G, Director Sahab, unmute yourself. Yeah, please.
जी Thank
Please
you.
go ahead.
My name is Shehzad Hassan Shigri. I am serving as Director of the Gilgit-Baltistan Environmental Protection Agency.
Shehzad?
Shehzad Hassan Shigri.
Right. बिल्कुल याद आ गया.
जी,
please go ahead.
Thank you very much for arranging such a wonderful event, or you can say a much needed event on the wake of climate change. And mountain communities, if we say generally about mountains are very sensitive, fragile ecosystem on one hand, and on the other hand, the mountain communities are very vulnerable to the impacts of climate change in shape of disasters, because due to the fact that we are living in deep, narrow valleys adjacent to the glaciers and the mountain slopes, so we don't have enough time to escape a disaster or to avoid one. And secondly, the global climate change phenomena is pressing this region very hard in recent years, and we have collected the data of 38 years to assess the impacts of climate change and how much climate change or the temperature has rises in this region. And we have processed the data with ComSets and other universities and with some other researchers also. And we are working closely with PMD and SPARCO and UNDP also in processing of data and climate change monitoring in this region. So in last 38 years, the annual average temperature of this region rises up to 0.5 degrees centigrade, which is very significant for a mountain area. And our rainfall or precipitation decreases by 8.4 millimeter in the same area and in the same period. And third, a significant change we have witnessed in this region is the change in precipitation pattern. Previously, our precipitation period was, or season was, the early December or late November or early December. Now it shifted to early January and late February. So previously, when it was precipitation or snowfall early in the season, it has time to accumulate or to convert the snow into ice, and the expansion of glaciers occur. But now, when it precipitates or snowfall occurs in the late season, so it don't have enough time to convert the snow into ice, and after a short span of a heat wave, all the snow melts and takes a disastrous shape for the downstream communities. So these are the problems that we are facing. But
okay, Shagri Saab, what we know, all these they are the common problems everywhere in the
yes.
Mountain areas. My question is, do you have any voice in the COP29 delegation? They are going to participate from Pakistan. Have you, contributed any of your concerns regarding the mountain communities of or Gilgit-Baltistan?
Yes, exactly. We have communicated all our concerns and our needs to Federal Ministry of Climate Change to present that at COP in the COP. But
what are the concerns
view,
or the recommendations, Shagri Saab, you have communicated to Minister of Climate Change to take to Baku?
First, we need a climate resilient development, and we have to set our climate resilient development pathways. And this is an approach that is very widely adopted by mountain communities or mountain areas in the world, because the issue is lives, livelihood, and infrastructure. There are three types of, you can say, segments that are affected by the impacts of climate change. So this climate resilience is scientific based, it has engineering solutions. So we have to take this approach for our communities and the infrastructure. And we are lacking the capacities for these engineering solutions. So we have conveyed this issue to Ministry of Climate Change to get not only the financial assistance, but we need technical assistance also.
Okay.
So the second thing we have conveyed is that we need climate finance in shape of climate markets. Like we also want to get into this climate business, like we have hydroelectricity potential in this area. And now we are working on a climate market strategy with EU and with Ministry of Climate Change to get climate finance and other things. And we are going to be involved in this business also.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shakir Saab, for making your point. And I'm really happy that Gilgit-Baltistan government has contributed to the dossier that, or the deliberations, the expected deliberations of the Pakistan government at the COP29. Now I request Ijaz Ahmed Khan Saab to unmute himself. Ijaz Ahmed Khan Saab is a resource person for UNDP GLOF project, and right in the heart of the Gilgit-Baltistan. Ijaz Saab, can you unmute yourself, please? Ijaz Ahmed Khan Saab, please unmute yourself.
Yes, I have.
Okay, thank you, Ijaz Saab. Ijaz Saab, you
yes.
are a resource person for the UNDP
yes, sir,
GLOF project, and we have been talking about the data availability, data analysis, and all the concrete steps that should be taken. GLOF has been, GLOF has several interventions, and this is the second phase, and millions of dollars have been spent in the areas. What significance or what change do you see over there? And what about the data of water flow and GLOF and whatever? Please go ahead.
Hello. Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity to speak. First of all, I would like to thank all the experts who speak at the occasion and enrich our knowledge regarding this climate change. As we are doing imparting the trainings at community level who are just adjacent to these glaciers, specifically in the 16 valleys of Gilgit-Baltistan where the GLOF is working. We are working through the planning and the planning department and GBRSP for imparting trainings to the community regarding this GLOF related risk and climate induced disasters risk. So the things which I would like to mention, that as the Ashik Ahmed Khan Saab said, that there is a specific need of this in connecting indigenous knowledge with this scientific approach to get some positive results regarding this climate change. And the other things which I would like to point out on the basis of this session, which are doing since last 6-7 months in the communities, are the haphazard tourism, which is promoting in this region, in northern region, specifically to the glacier and these points which are very important in our ecosystems, like forest and glaciers. The tourists are the tourism is promoting in the area, but there's a negative impact in terms of this fuel, like the emission produced from the vehicles, because the mostly in the most of the areas the tourists are getting their vehicles direct to near to that glaciers, which has a negative impact. And other thing which you already point out is the deforestation has a a very negative impact, which is we can't controlling these two things in the Gilgit-Baltistan, which has a negative impact on melting the glaciers, and it is a triggering factors for this our temperature rise. And the temperature rise is due to the temperature rise, our glaciers are melting. Specifically, as the Ashik Saab told about the Shamshal glaciers and the Ropal Valley glaciers and some other Arandu glaciers, which are very near to, and the some of our development sector major projects like in the road construction and others, they have also a negative impact on our ecosystem, on our these glaciers. So we need to consider these development initiative like development in the tourism sector, in the infrastructure sector. We should keep in mind the negative impacts and adopt the environment friendly or climate friendly initiative that should not impact our glaciers. Specifically due to the glacier melting, the disaster due to the disaster occurrence, there is a loss of life and properties in these valleys. Like some of the example I would like to quote this in the Batswat area of the Ishkoman Valley, and in Astor Valley there were this year also occurrence of flash flood has lost our agro base, our economy and infrastructure in both the areas. So there are many examples we can quote due to occurrence of these glaciers melting induced disasters. So we need to consider some positive or concrete concrete projects or concrete initiative. Is the Ashik Saab early told that there should be community oriented initiative, or some funding should be allocated to the community oriented projects in which they should on the basis of their indigenous knowledge should connect these with the scientific knowledge or scientific evidences and implement a small projects in all these communities and just adjacent to these mountain areas, so we can put a positive impact. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ajaz. We have been joined by Deputy Chief of the Mission of Uzbekistan in Pakistan, Sovereign John. Excellency, can you unmute yourself? Excellency, Sovereign John. Excellency, Sovereign John, can you unmute yourself? I don't know. Tahir Saab, can you unmute yourself? Tahir, Imran Khan is promoting adventure sports. Tahir Saab, are you there? Tahir Saab. Okay. Qadir Jalani Saab, please unmute yourself and raise your question. Qadir Jalani Saab, please ask your question or comments or offer your comments.
Thanks, Munir Saab, for keeping us in the circulation list of this kind of important webinars. So personally, I'm Abdul Qadir Jalani. I'm a development professional and working with the National Rural Support Program in AJK region. A question was raised by Ghulam Rasool Saab, supported by Ashik Hussain Saab and other participants. It was the lack of community engagement and participation. So the question next what would be the solution now? What would be the effective model for community engagement, and what is the successful models? So in this connection, I am referring the three-tier social mobilization model. As you are very well aware that our mentor is Sheikh Sam Khan, this approach and participatory development program. So the technically different aspect it was discussed by this different experts, but the model and approach is of how the community engagement that should be ensured and maximized. So I'm just refreshing and referring this the model of rural support program as kind of suggestion for this COP29.
Okay. Thank you. Tahir Saab, Tahir Imran Khan has been promoting adventure sport for years now. Tahir Saab, what is your observation about the mountains and how COP29 or shall be taking or considering the mountain issues?
Assalamualaikum, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and
Yeah,
everyone can
that's
hear you, please.
very important and very learned people have contributed their thoughts. So I will talk a little about the K2 track only. So I was there 2 years ago. So it's in pathetic condition, though we are charging some fee by CKNP and GB government. But I'm not complaining them, but the things are not up to mark there, especially the issue of washrooms. And I'm talking other than environmental issue. So there we have to walk at least for 13 days, 6 to 8 hours, and there is no proper place for toilet. There were some toilets fixed by some NGO, but they are not in good condition. So this is one of the major issues there. And then there was issue of bridges and obviously environmental issue. There are heaps of garbage accumulating year by year. So there should be some body, some authority who will take care. This is my only point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tahir Imran Saab. Sarah, in the last Global Mountain Partnership meeting, I raised the agenda of waste-free mountains. And that was based on my experiences working with the mountain areas. What is there any update? Because I also raised the point that those who have been mountaineering expeditions and the waste they left over there, and well, what could be done about it?
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. You raised the point at the global meeting, which was that?
Waste-free mountains and collecting the garbage from the high mountains, and waste-free mountains was that I raised, and it was also taken as one of the session over there.
Yes, it was also done at Aspen. We had a meeting. That's actually something that UNEP deals with. It's part of their mandate because obviously they're the environmental agency. So we don't have projects connected to specifically waste. Obviously, we work with a lot of the members who work with tourism and look at sustainable mountain tourism. And we have, of course, messaging on how to be a responsible tourist and pick up your waste. But the large impact of waste, that's something that's been addressed in a policy brief that was recently developed last year. And I see that the chat is disabled, but if you could enable the chat, I can send you the link of the policy brief that was produced by UNEP and was presented by Aspen last year. Because I can't seem to have access to it.
Do you think like we can develop a certain global framework for the mountaineers, and those like that could be implemented by strictly implemented by the governments?
Well, that's a big question. As I said, the mandate stays with kind of UNEP because they have the environmental issue, and I'm trying to share with you this brief that looks at obviously how plastic waste is surging across mountains, but I'm having problems with with the connections. Can you? Is the chat is disabled, by the way, so I can't have access.
Let me. Yeah.
It's not connecting my thing.
I have enabled the chat.
Okay.
At the moment, yeah.
And then I'll put this brief. It was developed by Grid Arendal, UNEP, the MRI.
Okay.
Uliawa, Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm Secretariat. Obviously, they're the ones who really work on the issue.
Sure.
But there are efforts towards the establishment of global binding instrument to combat plastic pollution. So I'll refer to those instruments which are binding and led by governments.
Okay. Thank you. Meanwhile, a couple of more friends joined us. Corin Cuerdas, can you unmute yourself? And yeah, where are you from?
Hello.
How are you, Corin? Wonderful to see you.
Fine.
And I can see you. I can see you as well, and the mountains as well.
So, unfortunately, I've heard just 10 minutes ago about this meeting. Your hour is 3 hours later than Romania, and I just catch the final part of your discussion. But I hope you will send us a small brief about what was the discussion. I represent the National Agency for Mountain Zone in Romania. It's a public entity within the Ministry of Agriculture. Have you understand me?
But please go ahead.
So,
Corin, please go ahead.
This is what I want to tell you. Which entity I represent, and I hope you will send us by mail or some link to what was the discussion here, a brief notice about the subject for today. I just 5 minutes ago I can connect it to you.
Okay.
Because it is different hour in Romania.
Yeah. I understand, Corin. Thank you very much for joining us. And certainly I will be sharing a link of YouTube with Sarah. Sarah will share with all the members that what we have discussed here. And meanwhile, I was trying to connect Deputy Chief of the Mission of Uzbekistan in Pakistan, Soberjan, but unfortunately, I don't know. He is seen here, but not available. He has to speak about the Uzbekistan government's initiatives taken for their mountainous regions. With this, anyone else, if like to speak, can raise hand. Still, we have a couple of more minutes, and we have with us Sarah Manueli from Mountain Partnership, and Gilgit-Baltistan Director EPA. And also Ashik Saab is still with us. He is scientific advisor to EBK2CNR, and Fabio is, as if I pronounce correctly, is also with us. Any more comments or no? I don't see any more hands raised. So I would conclude with this. Thanking Sarah Manueli from joining Rome, and though there was quite early morning because of the, and also the friend from Romania and from South Africa, and Fabio from Rome as well, and Soberjan as Excellency also joined, and but I don't know if there was any problem, but it is really very productive thing that at least we shared a couple of good thoughts, and we talked about what could be done and how these points shall be incorporated into the delegations going to COP29 Baku. And I believe that Mountain Partnership will also be having its sideline event, and the vigorous campaign Mountain Partnership did over the years culminated with incorporation of the mountains in the COP agenda, UNFCCC agenda finally. And I believe that with your efforts, Sarah, with your colleagues and others, it would be mainstreamed in the, while like we call the COP as a sort of like get together of all the people around the world for their networking and public relations, not more than that, because the political agents all over the world representing their governments are, especially the rich governments, they are not putting up their part of efforts and funding in it. With this, thank you so much, and I will be sharing a link of the webinar. Take care of yourself, and see you sometime next time on any global agenda related to mountains. Take care of yourself. Allah Hafiz.